The Revolution Podcast, Episode 11, Feedback for Sex and Drugs. Golden Spiral Media presents The Revolution Podcast. Support for The Revolution Podcast is provided by listeners like you and through our affiliation with HostGator. While no hosting service can withstand a catastrophic, physics-bending, worldwide blackout, HostGator's top-of-the-line data centers feature redundant power, HVAC, and fire detection systems under 24/7 surveillance. Visit goldenspiralmedia.com/HostGator today. Welcome back to the Revolution Podcast, everybody. I'm Daryl.
And I'm Jeremy. You sure you're not Clint?
I started to say Clint.
Okay.
I started to say I'm Clint. You'll hear why in just a few minutes, but no, I am Daryl.
Okay.
Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing wonderful.
So you're doing good. Nothing's changed in the last 5 minutes?
No.
Yeah.
My drink has been pretty good. So.
Yeah. Cherry Coke. I'm a big Cherry Coke fan. Yeah, Cherry Coke.
It's actually, I don't know if we're getting paid for this or not. I know we're not, but it's really good.
It is really good. I used to drink Cherry Coke Zero a lot. Every day I would have one or two.
Really?
And then I gave up soda. I still have a soda every once in a while. And but no, I loved it because it's a healthier soda, and yet it tastes a whole lot like the real Cherry Coke.
Right.
And so I found it to be quite good.
Yeah. I agree.
Coke, if you want to sponsor this podcast, just go over to our support page, goldenspiralmedia.com/support. You can learn about all the advertising opportunities we have, and we could probably negotiate something out. All right. Anyway, let's see. We're going to get into some feedback that we received for this episode, and we didn't receive as much feedback as we normally do. I think that has a lot to do with the Northwest United States having not seen the episode yet, but we did get quite a bit of feedback in, and we're certainly grateful for everybody that sent that in. So let's play that earworm music and get started. I do love that music.
It's catchy.
It is very catchy. Earworm. In fact, we got some feedback. I don't remember how it came in, if it's Twitter or how it came in, if it's in the chat room sometime in the last week or so, that was like that earworm. They called it an earworm and talked about how they've been it's been stuck in their head all day. And
it's good.
It's good. Makes you think of the Revolution Podcast when you hear it.
There you go.
All right. Let's see. How many do we have to read tonight? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll tell you what, let's play a couple of the audios, and then we'll get into the written feedback that came in. We're going to get it kicked off with a feedback that we have for Soul Train.
Okay.
And this came in from Chris in New York.
Hey, Daryl and Jeremy, or Jeremy and Daryl, as I'm sure Jeremy would prefer I say it, as well as the wonderful listeners like myself of the wonderful Revolution Podcast. This is Chris from New York, and I have definitely come a very long way from the guy who, after having seen the pilot episode, said that he wasn't really feeling it yet, the pilot episode didn't do much for him, that it was probably going to take him a little while to get involved in the series. I definitely am involved now. Revolution is an awesome show, and it just seems to get progressively better every week. This last episode that we had, Soul Train, was definitely the best episode out of the 5 that we've had so far, so I loved it. It was awesome, and I'm excited for more. I cannot wait for more. So basically, I also want to briefly talk about a couple of things that I noticed from the episode. One was that the number 47 was on the train, and I just throw that out there because 47 is a very frequent Easter egg in J.J. Abrams' productions. It wasn't just an Easter egg on Alias, it was a plot point. And it was something that we saw occasionally on Lost. It's something that we've seen from time to time on Fringe. So the number 47 is something that tends to show up on Fringe. It does show up on Fringe, but on J.J. Abrams' productions. And we're now seeing it on Revolution, although this might not have been the first time. It was just the first time that I noticed it. The other thing that I want to point out is that we find out at the end of the episode that there are 12 pendants. And this is obviously important because it means that there are quite a few other people who are in possession of them, and I think that that's definitely very important. But the reason that I bring it up is because, again, this is something that tends to show up when it comes to J.J. Abrams productions fairly frequently. The number 12. On Alias, there were 12 factions of the terrorist organization known as SD. There was SD-1 through SD-12. On Fringe, I think that it's safe to assume that there were 12 observers in the scientific team of which September was a part, because they took months, as their names. So I think that it's safe to assume that there were 12 of them. And now on Revolution, we know that there are 12 pendants. So just throwing that out there, that for whatever reason on J.J. Abrams Productions, he likes the number 12. That's pretty much all that I wanted to cover, though. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I tend to do that at times, and I apologize. But thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for the podcast, because it's awesome, it's amazing, I love you too. And it definitely adds to my experience as a Revolutionist, because I don't think that I would be the Revolution fan that I am without it, and I definitely know that I would not be the Fringe fan or the Cortexa fan that I am without having had the Fringe podcast for the last 4 years. So thank you guys so much for what you do. I mean, you just make the whole experience so much more fun and entertaining, and you're awesome. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Very much.
Thank you for your compliments. Chris has been a faithful listener of the Fringe podcast for years, as you can tell by what he was saying there. He's a great Fringe fan and contributor to the podcast. He's done some blogging for us too, and he and I talked, as he mentioned, when Revolution first came out. He wasn't sure if he was going to be on board or not, and I've always encouraged people to stick around for a show. There are these I was going to say landmarks, but where 4 episodes,
right?
It seems like after 4 episodes you get a pretty good feel about it, but then even after, like, say 6 or 7 episodes, now you're starting to get into episodes where they could have received feedback from the initial reaction and start to try to change things. Mm-hmm. So if you can make it through 7 episodes, then and then if you can say, hey, this isn't my thing, okay, that's fine, And I've still got a couple of friends that I've got. Mm-hmm. There's one guy that we work with, Steven, and he gave up on it after like 3 episodes. And I keep telling him, man, it's getting better every week, and some people just don't want to do that. And I get that. I've said before that Revolution isn't a show for everybody, but it's exciting for me to see Chris on board with Revolution now. He'll be a great contributor to the podcast, a very insightful guy, and glad to have you excited and on board with Revolution, Chris.
Absolutely, and he gets the order of our names right. I like that. He noticed those details. So.
That's not important unless you get my name first.
Yeah.
No, I really don't care about that stuff. Makes you feel better about yourself, whatever, Jeremy.
Attaboy, Jeremy.
If you're insecure in that way, it makes you feel better. That's fine with me.
If they'll put my name first, I will take that.
Yeah. No. Now he talked about some other things with numbers. What was your take on that?
Well, I did notice the 47 and the 12. We kind of discussed the 12. I don't know if we brought up the 47 last episode, but
I don't know that we did either. I don't remember talking about it. I definitely noticed it on the train.
Right.
And it was also the first time I had noticed it in the show. Chris said that was the first time he had noticed a 47 in Revolution. That was the first time I had noticed it as well. I hadn't really thought about the 12, the number 12 that he brought in, talking about the pendants and then how they tied into other JJ shows. With obviously with Fringe it does. I've never watched Alias. Have you ever seen Alias?
I watched Alias a long time ago, and I was a young lad, and Jennifer Garner was in it, and I can't remember anything about the show other than the fact that Jennifer Garner was pretty, and she was in the show, so... Yeah. I don't know, I guess that's what I get for being a teenager.
I just watched it because that girl was pretty. I don't remember anything else about it. That was my Jeremy impersonation.
It's a good impression. Good impression.
Yeah. Now, this is more of a Kripke show than it is a JJ show, although obviously JJ's name is attached to it.
Yeah.
And I'm not nearly as familiar with Eric Kripke's stuff, like Supernatural, for example.
Right.
I've never seen an episode of Supernatural. I'm familiar with what he has done, but the ins and outs of what he has done, So we're going to be leaning on some of you out there that are deeply familiar with his work to help us see some of those themes that he likes to carry in with his work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chris, for calling in. We've got a really short one here from Charlie in Virginia.
Hey guys, it's Charlie in Virginia, and I'm all safe from the storm. My favorite part in Revolution last night was the two girls in Lake's panties pour in the bathtub. All the best, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
That's good. Thank you, Charlie, for calling in. We sure appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of people shared the same opinion about that. And another scene that happened just after that.
Yeah. So we had a lot of our viewers in the chat room going on about that too. So
yeah, it
was definitely obvious. But
all right, let's listen to one more here. This one comes in from John in North Carolina.
Hi, Daryl and Jeremy. This is John from North Carolina calling for the Revolution podcast. Thanks so much for putting it together. You guys are doing a great job with it, as always. So this last episode, Sex and Drugs, I was sort of astounded when I finished. And I think what I enjoy about this show, and particularly about this episode, is that it really makes you ask some of these questions that you just really wouldn't be presented with otherwise. I mean, if this situation were ever to happen, do we really know what we would do in circumstances that we might face like this? And yes, some of this is far-fetched, and to be fair, I think the writers and producers are going to have to sort of keep watch on the pacing. If our characters have to face these life and death decisions every single week, I think it will start to detract folks from wanting to watch, because after a while, it's difficult to go there. But I really appreciated Aaron's story this week. I appreciated that when I saw the note that he had walked away, it rang something true in me. I know, because there's certainly been times, Lord knows there's been times in my life where you just want to say, what good am I to anyone around me? Well, I'm not even sure that I'm helpful in any way. And I know if I've been there, would I make a decision to walk away from my wife and my family? I can sit here and say, well, no, absolutely not. I'd stick it through to the end. But I think that's what's great, is that there is a level of believability and plausibility that, yes, you would make decisions based on circumstances that you never thought possible, and you might do things that you never thought possible. So, kudos to them for going there. They probably just need to do it a little more judiciously than what they are. But again, love the episode, love the show so far, and appreciate you guys for just including us in the community. Appreciate it.
all right. Well, thank you, John from North Carolina. And I assume that North Carolina is safe from the storm, or?
I think so. Okay. I think they were far enough south to not really get hit by it.
All right. Well, he brought up the point that you had brought up, and it's kind of neat to have that come up. Just about the what would you do in those situations, and he adds a different element on that. I like his take on Aaron's side. He kind of describes how it does humanize you, and it kind of brings to mind that, I mean, yeah, we're not perfect, and so we may not make the correct choice, quote unquote correct. I mean, but so I like, he kind of just shows me it. They are human, and I forget that they're not supposed to always be the best at everything that they do. So I kind of appreciated that.
Sure, and because they're human, they're going to make stupid mistakes, like, not check to see if the doorknob is unlocked before trying to rescue her brother out of a train.
Exactly.
Even though it's a common sense thing to do, hey, it could happen, right? No. Yeah. I liked it too, and I already kind of talked about this, and I'm glad too to see his point of view on this. And John, I think he mentioned the believability and the plausibility of it.
Right.
Particularly in situations like this, more so than the doorknob thing. Is it believable that you would do the same thing in Aaron's situation in this case, or Charlie's situation where she was going to kill that guy? No, you might say, but was it plausible? I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's why I say I think it's found its footing when when it causes you, if you think about it, to try to put yourself in those situations.
Right.
It makes the characters more realistic. It makes the show more in depth, and brings another layer of engagement into the show.
Mm-hmm.
And you might say, I would never do what Aaron did. But it might cause you to really reflect on the way you view your family, for example.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I'm really, really digging it.
I am too.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you, John, for calling in. We certainly appreciate your point of view, and glad to have you as a part of the community. Hope to hear from you more often.
Yeah.
All right, let's read some here.
Are you going to take this, Clint?
I'm going to let you take it, Jeremy.
Are you sure? All right. Well,
it's not addressed to me. I don't see how I could take it.
Okay. Well, Martha sends us a feedback that says, "Hi there, non-evil Jeremy and Clint."
Wait, could you read that again?
No, but she did very obviously say that non-evil Jeremy, and apparently I co-host with Clint.
She got both of those wrong. You are evil Jeremy, and I'm not Clint.
Well, he's better, right?
Apparently I don't exist to Martha.
Apparently.
That's all right.
You're dead to her.
That's okay.
Anywho, Martha says, "Today at work, I'm dancing around a bit in my chair because I have the super robot-y feedback song stuck in my head."
There it is. That's the one.
There's your earworm, as you called it. She says, "And I haven't listened to your podcast yet this week. The song just sort of resurfaced into my consciousness. As far as earworms go, it's a pretty rockin' one to have. Feel free to release the 12-inch dance mix. Keep up the good work, Martha."
That's funny that I forgot where the feedback comment came from, and she forgot that I was actually one of the hosts of this podcast. That was not intentional, but
sure,
it seems appropriate now.
A likely excuse.
Thanks, Martha, and we appreciate the feedback there. All right, I've got one here I'm going to read. It's a little bit long, but it's good. This comes in from Jim in Wisconsin, and Jim's are always long when he writes in, but I always think they're good too. He says, "Hey, Jeremy and Daryl."
Thank you.
That make you feel better? "Holy bait and switch, Batman. This episode previewed as if poor Charlie was going to have to spend some quality time alone with Drexel in order to save Nora, but they went a completely different direction with it. Even the title made us think an indecent proposal was going to take place. Kudos to the team for clever editing on the preview and for another great episode. This was what I like to call a, quote, seed episode, because it plants the seed for things to come down the road. But at the rate this show moves along, it may very well be next week. The major seed I saw planted here was the fact that Jason had an issue with who was being sent to retrieve the pendant. This is the beginning of the end for Neville as bad guys, as the Nevilles as bad guys.
Interesting.
Jason will go AWOL and follow the guy hunting Team Miles only to save them once again. This will lead to the confrontation that turns one or both of the Nevilles away from the dark side. Perhaps Major Tom will sacrifice himself to save his son and go out a hero after all. Charlie matured some more this week and was ready to take an innocent life to save her friends. The flashbacks she had while soaking in the tub made it clear just how rough her life has been. Everyone she's cared about has either left, been taken, or died. I think tearing up the postcards was a sign that she's finally grown up enough to realize that she needs to leave those childish things in the past and move on as an adult that can control her own destiny. I like where her character is going now that she's found some direction. Aaron's backstory was pretty interesting and again ended with a bit of a surprise. He did indeed seem to have it all, though I wouldn't have expected him to have the bushy soup catcher back before the blackout. I wonder if we'll see his wife again and what that reunion might be like. I really like how this show uses the flashbacks as if the character is having a moment of reflection during the episode. We saw the same sort of thing with Tom last time, where he paused to think about something just as the flashback started. It makes it seem like they want to help the viewer understand what the characters are thinking about at the moment of the show, and not just giving us background info to remember for later. Aaron's plan to kill Drexel was predictable, but nonetheless it showed us how he's matured as well. Finally, standing up to the quote-unquote bully and doing what was necessary to gain freedom for himself and Nora. Also, Aaron was the focus of this week's footnote, and it's interesting that he got his wish, but that it ultimately pulled him away from his wife. And I'm not sure what he's talking about there because I haven't read the footnotes yet, but I do plan on that. The final thing he says, excuse me, on the other hand, I think about other... okay, here we go. One other thing about the footnotes. The postcard from Mason and Mandy from episode 4 was sent to someone named Carrie. The newspaper article from episode 5 was written by Carrie Weldon. Perhaps Carrie is the one providing all the footnotes. Not sure if it's anything important, but I thought I'd bring it up. Sorry if this is too long to read on the feedback podcast. I'm not able to call in before the deadline, but I enjoy sending in my thoughts. Thanks again for the great podcast. From the corner of Shut Up and Stay Here, Jim. All right, Jim, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I like that it was nice in paragraph and bullet form for us to talk about each little subject there. I haven't read the footnotes yet, so I can't really comment on that, although, like I said, I need to go and read those for this episode.
Yeah.
He called it a seed episode, and really talking about what will happen there with Jason and company. He laid out a couple of scenarios that might happen. Where do you come down? Do you think there will be a mutual turning away from the dark side, or no turning away from the dark side? What do you see in your crystal ball?
My crystal ball says that he's likely correct. I agree. I don't know if I've said it before, but if not, he's persuaded me. I think that what we see with Jason and Tom is eventually going to lead, I believe it's going to lead to at least one of their demises, but I think to both of their, this is essentially their redemptions. It may not be right, but I'm on his line. So
yeah, and remember last week, and I think this is what Tangier in the chat room is referring to, but if not, we both speculated that last week when Tom asked Miles why he left, and Miles said, "Oh, you wouldn't believe me if I told you," I think is what he said, and
yeah.
Anyway, we both kind of got the impression that Tom may not be so gung-ho about the militia. So I could see both of them, both Neville guys, turning away. And also an interesting, and I think this one came from Tangier, that they were talking about in the chat room earlier, and that is that their theory is that Neville's wife, Julie, is the leader of the resistance.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. It'd be quite good.
So...
yeah, and I agree with the character development that Jim talked about with Charlie. Ripping up the postcards was another big thing, and we really didn't talk about those flashbacks that she had, but it did help the audience even further help us understand with the demons that she's fighting in her own mind, I guess you could say.
Yeah, her life's been pretty dark, despite the fact that it's been pretty sheltered. Yeah, so her dad wasn't able to protect her from everything he wanted to, so that's very interesting. So,
yeah, very good.
I don't know if he was ultimately a failure or not, but he didn't get his way. Jim also mentions Carrie from the footnotes, and kind of makes me. I've been kind of wondering if Carrie is the one Grace was typing to in the season or series premiere. So I think
interesting thought.
I think we'll probably see her at some point.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. I don't know if they'd create a character that's completely outside of the show, but I think at some point we will see.
Yeah, they could. Lost did some really cool things the first season where you could go online and you could see these journal writings, and these were journal writings from someone that, as far as I can recall, never actually made an appearance on the show.
Okay.
And I think the girl's name was Joanne, that she drowned on the show early on, and there was a journal entry about that and how Boone tried to save her and Jack had to save Boone and all these cool little inside things to kind of take the show to a different level.
Yeah.
That's kind of what these footnotes are reminding me of.
Yeah.
Really, really cool another layer of enjoyment.
And it definitely draws the viewer in a little bit more.
Yeah.
So deeper into the web. So
all right, let's get back to the audios here. We're going to start out with Chris in Arizona.
Hey, Revolutionaries. This is Chris from Phoenix. I really enjoy the podcast, and kind of brought back to me the joy of listening to podcasts about some of my favorite shows. I think the last show that I listened to a podcast on was Lost, of course. And now that I've started listening to both you, Daryl, and Jeremy, interested in going back and seeing Fringe, and getting into that, and possibly listening to some of the podcasts that you've done from that series. Anyway, watching the episode last night, it kind of cemented in the idea for me that Aaron is our Hurley type character, and that I think that we'll find that he's going to be an integral part of getting the lights back on. Look forward to listening to all the theories, and look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I wonder what would classify as an integral part to getting the power back on.
The guy that gets killed to give you the medallion?
Well, no. Yeah. That is one option. I mean, he's got the power right now, the amulet. He doesn't fully understand it. We don't think.
Right.
But if he does understand it, then he definitely is an integral part to getting the power back on. If his spidey senses start tingling and he understands that what he has is something, even if he doesn't understand it, something he needs to protect, then he could, again, the decisions he makes regarding the amulet and what he does with it, how he protects it or whatever, could be an integral part.
So I think if he maintains possession of it through the show, he will probably use his geekiness essentially into building whatever device that we've kind of been shown.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
I'm not convinced that he's going to keep it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think he's going to die to give it up, but I do think that he's going to lose it at some point.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, it could also be an integral part in once it is restored. Mm-hmm. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he is put in charge of something, or maybe he has a responsibility in creating some sort of program to maintain it or control it. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, he could play a big part in that side of it. There's so many ideas, you know, and a couple of weeks ago somebody mentioned that, you know, Hurley ended up having a much more substantial role in Lost than what we might have originally thought. And you know, if this guy is going to be the Hurley, then that certainly could be the case.
Yeah.
So we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, thanks for calling in. Let's move on to Comey in Georgia.
Hey, guys, it's Comey from Savannah, Georgia, calling about Revolution. Sex and Drugs. That was a pretty good episode. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. It hasn't been as amazing as the last two episodes we've watched, but kind of understand that they had to dial it down a little bit, and they can't just be top-notch episodes every single week. With the start of the episode, I thought it was very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back when Miles rolled up with the gang and Drexel came out, and it just felt like Han Solo being handed off at Bespin, and Lando Calrissian showing up and greeting him. Very, very similar scenes, I thought. It's good to see a flashback episode featuring Aaron. We hadn't really gotten a chance to see his backstory, but it's nice to know where he's coming from. Very amazing that he's basically stayed the same guy throughout the 15 years of the blackout. But I thought today was a defining moment in him. Hopefully, the taking out of Drexel will give him some confidence, and we'll see him going forward as being more of an integral part of the group and being a useful member. All right, guys, take care. Love the podcast. Keep it up. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, Han, what do you think about the Lando?
Well, we mentioned it too. Yeah. It definitely had that feel, and it was great. I mean, it was. That's what the good ones do. They don't try to total straight rip off somebody, because then you feel like there wasn't any creativity involved. Right. But if you're paying homage to something, and it brings back some really cool memories, or that type of thing. Yeah. Then you're like, well done, well played, and that's what this was for me. Yeah. It was well done, well played.
Yeah. It was. he was. I mean, we mentioned this, I think, already in the podcast, like you said, but he was really dark in that scene, and I really didn't know. I knew Miles couldn't die, but I didn't know if he was half serious or not. I mean, I knew that it was a Lando moment, but at the same time, I still felt that he had a grudge, and Lando didn't really hold a huge grudge against Han, but Drexel obviously had problems with Miles. So,
well, we'll find out, I guess, if it turns out that Miles somehow swindled the Millennium Falcon away from him, right?
Yeah, maybe it's another steam engine.
Maybe it is. All right, let's get back to reading some.
All right.
I'll
take this next one.
All right, I'll let you take it.
See, this is from the Unibeefer.
Mm-hmm.
He has a small R.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I missed a letter when I changed the font size.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and he says, since I was mentioned so many goldarn times in the last podcast, I took that as a hint you wanted more feedback from me. So here goes, dagnabbit. Thank you. I was thinking about the crash in Aaron's flashback, mostly due to people complaining that electricity wouldn't have affected the ability for the truck to brake. And that led me to thinking, wasn't it a diesel truck that crashed into them? If it was, maybe we just got a subtle answer to the folk arguing that the power wouldn't have affected diesel engines. Maybe the diesel truck didn't lose power when others did, but did lose its lights and the lack of battery power. And for some reason, the driver hadn't had a chance to fully stop before plowing into the side of a black limo in the dark. Or I could be wrong and it wasn't a big truck, but if memory serves, it was. Okay, I'm done for now. The Unibeefer.
It was a big semi.
It looked like a Mack truck or something like that to me. So.
Peterbilt or we could throw out some names, but no, it was a semi truck.
Yeah. So it looked huge. I'm surprised personally that they came out of that with apparently not a scratch.
I know.
I actually thought Aaron's wife, I forgot her name again. I know Priscilla.
Uh-huh.
I thought her illness at the beginning was a result of the crash and not dysentery. Yeah. So
I thought the same thing when it first happened. I thought, well, now we just learned how his wife died.
Yeah.
I assumed that they weren't married anymore. He said, I used to be married, meant that she was dead.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'm like you. Oh, she's injured. You know, that's the result of the crash, you know?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, she's going to die. And then we find out she just went to the Oregon Trail, got dysentery. And,
that's right.
And fixed it. So.
Yeah. And so that's, we didn't really give props to the show for this, but we should have. I mean, again, well done. They gave us for me and you, it sounds like both thought the same thing. We thought we saw where it was going and it wasn't. And then we thought we saw where it was going and it wasn't, you know? Well done.
Yeah. I was blindsided at the end. Yeah. I was shocked she was still alive at the end of the episode, but it was definitely a fun trip, especially in the flashbacks. So
yeah. And as far as what he says there about the semi truck, the diesel engine, you know, we've had some other folks write in about the way diesel engines work based on compression, not on combustion. Mm-hmm. I think it's possible that the engine was still going, and that's why he slammed into him the way that he did. Until Matthew, the Unibeefer, sent this in, I really thought that the truck was probably coasting just down a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that could be the case too, but I definitely am glad that he brought this point up because it could be a clue if that's the case.
I'm going to side with him and say it's a clue.
Okay.
Just because I want to.
It's a clue.
So, yeah. So
we just got a letter. It's from Kazon. Kazon says, rewatched Soul Train. Did you like that segue?
Yes.
Yeah, that was professional all the way. He rewatched himself, Kazon. He rewatched Soul Train. Jeff Fahey as Hutch is a spy for either the Plains Nation or the Georgia Federation, or both. In the episode, after we see Monroe talking with his subordinate about the Plains Nation / Georgia alliance, the scene after is Hutch and Nora. It is either just coincidence and good for pacing, or it was intentional. Only time will tell. Thanks again. Great podcast.
Yeah.
I could totally see that.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a member of the rebellion.
Right.
Resistance Rebellion. Rebellion and Revolution, Resistance and Fringe. It's way too confusing. I'd love to see Jeff Fahey again. Did I get it wrong still? You looked at me funny.
I don't know. I think both work.
They both work for sure.
But the Rebellion to me is always Star Wars.
I would love to see Jeff Fahey again. I hope that he's right. I would. We definitely had some information given to us in Soul Train about the Georgia Federation and the Plains Nations working together.
Yeah,
and they were having trouble holding that line. So there's definitely a plot wrinkle that could come up, and if that involves Jeff Fahey, I'd be on board.
And if that's the case, I mean, what's the intention of the Plains Nation and the Georgia Federation?
Yeah,
so
to probably move farther away from Texas
or Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
we
should take our lumps too. So.
We should. We are now part of the South Bend Federation after we
were conquered.
We were owned by them this last weekend.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Not the South Bend Federation. I guess it would be the Bill O.
That's right. We got whooped by the Fighting Irish down the street. Those
exactly at Ohio State.
Potato-eating leprechauns down there, which is a quote from the show. I'm not being ugly. I don't intend to be ugly anyway.
I wish the episode would have come out before the game, though, so I could have made a sign for game day.
Yeah.
That said potato-eating leprechauns.
Yeah, that might have made the show.
It might have.
All right, let's see. We've got just a couple of more here to listen to, and this one comes in. By the way, thanks, Kazan, for that. This one comes in from Mark in Ontario.
Hey everyone, Mark from Ontario, Canada here. I decided to try audio feedback this time. Here's my thoughts on this week's episode. Neville and Jason. Is Neville happy about the promotion? When Bask asks him what he thinks, all he says is, Julie will be happy to have me home. It's kind of a non-answer. And I think it's pretty obvious that Jason will help save the group from Strouser. Whereas Miles, I don't think Miles did too much in this episode. My only thoughts about him were, what happened to the cook after he came out of the dumbwaiter and fought off the guard? The cook was nowhere to be seen afterwards. And how did he sneak into the O'Halloran's compound after Drexel said that it couldn't be done? Now, Charlie, I'm having a hard time deciding whether we saw her grow up in this episode or regress. She blows up at Aaron at the beginning about all their failings, then tears up her postcards. I felt it was like a kid having a tantrum. Then she agrees to murder someone without even trying to change Drexel's mind. When she reaches the compound and was walking away from the guard, I think she's walking too slow. It was very obvious she was trying to wait for the guard to change his mind. After hearing Bill O'Halloran's story about most of the family being police, I was sure Charlie would have tried to enlist his help, not continue and try to kill him. I didn't think she had it in her to go through with it, but it looks like she would have if not for Miles. I'm not sure I like that about her character, and I tell you, I'm really getting tired of her pouty face. Now, Aaron. He was one of my favorite characters this season, so I was very happy to finally have some background on him. But unlike other characters where I liked them even more after hearing their background stories, I kind of feel the opposite with Aaron. I thought he was predictable that he would leave his wife. I thought he was very materialistic and couldn't see that his wife loved him for who he was and not for what he could give her. I can see how in some ways he's grown since the blackout. I do think he's going to be vital to the story in the future, especially after his comment to Miles that he doesn't contribute anything to the group. Now, regarding the duel between Aaron and Nora, come on, I've seen the What's Bulletproof and What's Not episode of Mythbusters. There's no way Aaron's flask could have stopped that bullet. But, bending that reality, I can't get over the fact that none of the guards shot him before he shot Drexel. I counted at least 3 guns trained on him. It's not like he speed drew and shot. He slowly took aim and fired. And why didn't they shoot him after? You have your rifle pointed at this stranger who just killed your boss. He then turns the gun on one of the other guards? You're just going to stand there with your gun pointed at him and see if he shoots again? I don't get it. As for Aaron's wife, I'm confident the group's going to run into her at some point. I just hope it's not in the next couple of episodes. I think it would be too much of a coincidence that they find out about her this episode only to run into her next week's. My thinking is that when they do meet, she'll be part of a rebel group, probably married to Sean. Maybe she'll have a 14-year-old child and we'll be wondering if it's Sean's or Aaron's. Ooh. I just hope we don't find out she's been holding out for 14 years to the possibility of finding Aaron again. They're all living in a rough world, and I think that would be unrealistic. I thought about her possibly being militia, which I think would be more interesting, but I don't remember seeing any female militia, although I might have just missed them. Anyways, that's it for this week. Keep up the good work on the podcast. Bye.
That was great.
Yeah,
that was great. Mark, thanks for sending that in. He's in the chat room right now, and getting some grief from the other revolutionaries in there. They've started a drinking game by every time he says "aboot," which we love. We love accents because Jeremy and I don't have any type of accent. So anytime we hear anybody else with one, we thoroughly enjoy it.
Whatsoever, y'all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Where do you want to start with this? There's so much to take
I'm going
away
to start
from that.
with Nora's in the militia, and she's a woman. But so that's where I'm going to start.
She's not in the militia.
She has a flag on her back. Oh wait, militia.
Yeah, but I'm gonna stem off of that.
I was thinking that.
I think that she was in the militia when she met Miles, but more importantly, in Soul Train, we saw her disguised as militia.
Right.
If there were no women in the militia, then she would have stuck up like a sore thumb because she had the uniform on as a disguise. So I think there's definitely women in the militia.
Yeah. So, Priscilla, I personally hope that she is holding out for 14 years for her husband. That's just me. I'm kind of that traditional sort of a guy when it comes to marriage. So I think that I would like to see her holding out. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think she's with Sean.
I think she's moved on.
And I think rightfully so. I mean, he did divorce her.
It could be interesting if they Revolution, the Revolution blog, which is therevolutionblog.com, by the way, is saying there was also another female walking around the train last week.
Okay.
No, I think it could turn into like a Walking Dead type of thing where she thinks her husband is gone or dead.
Right.
She's moved on with this other relationship.
Yeah.
And if he comes back into the picture, particularly like he said, if there is a child, now the child would be older than what the child is in The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But, and if let's say that she did tell Sean it was his, but she knows in her heart of hearts that it's Aaron's or whatever, you know what I mean? It could make for a really interesting storyline.
Definitely. So maybe it'll go a little bit like the comics for The Walking Dead, not the book or the TV show.
Maybe. And if Sean and Priscilla and that group of people are now part of the resistance, well, then that does give us a really good way to bring them back into the storyline and for it not to seem, totally implausible that they happen to cross paths again.
Yeah.
So I love that the whole idea that he had there.
Yeah. With the pacing with Priscilla, I'm concerned about that as well. I don't want that answered next week.
Right. Definitely.
We've been getting a lot of questions, and we kind of brought this up last time. We've been getting a lot of questions answered really quickly. And like you said, I think that would just be weird to find out about her and then to meet her.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I agree with him there.
Yeah, and they can always, I say string it out. Not string it out, but, maybe let the audience forget about that. The casual viewer, the hardcore ones like us will remember that. But then that's what the Previously on Revolution segment is for. Bring us back to speed. Yep. Oh, yeah, we did. He did leave his wife, leave his wedding ring on a rock. Okay.
Yeah. He brought up the promotion as well for Tom Neville from Major and his acceptance of it. And he mentioned that it kind of felt a little, I guess, reluctant is the way I kind of picked up on it. And I didn't pick up on that necessarily in the episode. I'm seeing that from our listeners and the viewers.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat to see his opinions on that. So.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how I feel about that either. I mean, he could have been surprised by it and taken aback by it, or he could be... I mean, I don't know. I was going to say maybe he doesn't want it, but Monroe said that that's a position he's been vying for quite a while.
Right.
So, I don't know. I don't know how to take that scene, but he definitely didn't seem like overly exuberant or grateful for the, it's like, okay,
Yeah. To me, I guess if I think about it, the way I felt is he's almost plotting in his head.
Who, Tom or Monroe?
Tom. When he takes it kind of looked like he grinned, and it's like, all right, now what can I do with this? So, if he's not redeemed, kind of like we've already suggested, he might replace Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, he could be a power. What's he going to do with this new power?
Right. So there may be a coup within the camp. So mutiny. Yeah. So.
Yep. Very good. We talked about Charlie and whether or not she regressed or had some progress. I think a little bit of both.
Right.
I think she had some progress in terms of she grew up a little bit more, but did she take herself to a level that's too far where she was willing to kill that guy?
Yeah.
I hope not. And we also talked about how she had this compound full of people over here that were cops.
Right.
That was not her best option or her only option.
Right.
So, yeah. All right. Anything else from Mark there you want to talk about?
I don't have anything else for Mark, no.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for calling in. Thanks for joining the live show tonight, too. All right. Last one tonight also comes from somebody who's joining us in the live show. This one comes from CJ.
Hi, my name is CJ. I'm on Twitter as @CJChason. That's CJCHIASSON. Calling from sunny Southern California about the Revolution podcast. Seems as though Aaron was the focus of this episode, which I've been waiting for. I enjoy Aaron a lot as a character. It seemed that he finally manned up a little bit and started to develop his character and give a little bit of the backstory. On a side note, Charlie is finally starting to get like this tough facade going, and then she gets this opportunity to kill the leader of the other clan that's across the way, and then she ends up showing compassion. So she's trying to build up this tough character, but at the same time, I think she's still very compassionate, and it seemed appropriate for the episode. I mean, this guy's a lawman, and from the outside looking in, we don't have a lot of information about this family or anything, but they seem like good people. And it sort of opens up the doors for other storylines in the future. I mean, this is just one example of these people running across people that have come together and unified in a way to protect themselves after the blackout. And this is a great example of law enforcement and how they would kind of handle the situation. Back to Aaron, he seems that starting to show some skeletons in his closet, which is interesting, and I couldn't believe he left his wife, and I'd like to really wait to see if they show some more about that and what exactly was involved. I think that's interesting. At the same time, it kind of makes you want to slap him or something. Like, get it together, man. I mean, it's the end of times, it's Armageddon almost, and you can't really pull it together for your wife, and that's all you have. I mean, they haven't led us to believe he has any kids or any other family. I mean, it's all he's got is his wife, and if he doesn't have his wife, what is his life worth anyways? At least that's how I would think about it as a married man. So it's a little disturbing, but maybe that's to build the backstory to him redeeming himself, which was great because he straight up shot himself in the chest. I thought that was just amazing. I don't know that I could shoot myself in the chest, albeit it's a little unrealistic with the flash stopping the bullet, but Drexel, very happy to see that guy die. I really disliked him as a character, the whole, prostitution thing, which is totally feasible, and the poppy stuff, totally feasible. But he had this, weird thing about him where he would give people decisions, or it came across as Saw or something. I don't know exactly how to put it, but where he's getting a kick out of these people's misery and making them kill each other and do different things. And I didn't like him at all. And when he took one in the chest, it was a good thing. And I'm glad it happened in the same episode because I'd like to see him come and then go. I didn't like him very much, but anyways, just my thoughts. Thank you for your time. Bye.
All right.
I agree. I didn't like him, but I loved the character that was created because it was created to make us hate him.
Right.
And as much as I'd like to see him go, like you, I'd like to see more of him to see why he was the way he was.
Well, sure, and he gave us another insight into Miles, right? He said that Miles and he were tight, and Miles would he said something about putting somebody in front of a firing line or something.
Yeah.
And, just really kind of and Miles, that look on his face in that scene is just, he doesn't look embarrassed. I mean, or ashamed per se, but you can tell he wishes that what he was saying wasn't true. Deep regret, I think, would be the look I thought that he had on his face. But there's some cool backstory there, and we could see that again.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how he could swim through his money pit like Uncle Scrooge, although he didn't say Uncle Scrooge, but
everybody's that's what I pictured.
Oh yeah, so. And then CJ was talking about how realistic it would be that this guy would be running a prostitution and a drug ring. Of course, the world's always going to be interested in sex and drugs. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
and here's a guy who's scum of the earth. And making money off of it.
Yep. So, he did say something that just kind of brought to my mind something we didn't discuss in the episode before this, episode 10. The O'Halloran's.
Uh-huh.
Gonna butcher their name several times.
I know I did, yeah.
So, did they have guns? It looked like they had guns. I want to say the guard had a musket.
Yes, he definitely had. I definitely saw one of them with a gun.
Yeah. It just kind of makes me wonder why they were allowed to have them, or if they were even allowed to have them. I could understand that the drug lord, he's being used by Miles. He's going to have weapons. Or firearms. I can see that. That makes sense from a standpoint of why the Monroe Republic would allow that. But I can't see why the O'Halloran's would have that for any reason, especially if they're rivals to the gang. You think somebody would have already cleared them out for one, but regardless of that situation, how did they come about that without being hung or hanged?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Drexel clan wasn't really tied to the militia anymore. I mean, he said that when Miles left, they were associated with him, and they were seen as traitors too.
Right.
Now, you would still think that there would be some militia in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe we'll learn more. It's a really good question. I hadn't really thought of it. Yeah. I had thought of why it's surprising that these two powerful groups of people haven't killed each other by now.
Right.
But that hasn't happened either.
Yeah. They didn't act like there had been any firefights or anything before. So
not really.
I could imagine there'd be small scuffles, but I mean, anything major, you think they would have probably brought up.
Yeah.
So. But I don't know if we're actually going to see those locations again, so maybe it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
We didn't need to see that.
Yeah, he had a lot of the same thoughts that we had, and also that Mark had. It shared a lot of the same sentiments there. He talked about the flask again. Mark also brought that up, and not realistic, but for the sake of TV, I was completely okay with it.
Yeah. The flask actually reminds me of an episode of MacGyver. I don't know if anybody has ever seen an episode, much less
Clint is a huge MacGyver fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was little, there was a time that I watched that daily, but there was a scene in the show where I want to say MacGyver is dreaming the way I remember it, and I was really little when I watched this, and he gets shot, and he wakes up from this dream, and in the dream his pocket knife prevented the bullet from going through his heart. Well, He wakes up and he pulls the pocket knife out, and it has a bullet dent in the side of the pocket knife. So it kind of reminds me of that. I mean, would it prevent a bullet? Probably not, but especially a tin flask, I don't see.
Yeah. Particularly not at point blank like that.
Yeah.
But it's fun to...
I mean, you can't see. I'm kind of pointing in real life. It kind of looked like he had it at a funny angle. It wasn't actually pointed directly at him.
Sure.
So maybe he knew he was going to shoot through it. Maybe he actually never intended to hit himself. So
yeah,
I don't know.
All right. Anything else?
Nope. That's all for now.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody. Thank you, CJ, for calling in, and thank you to everybody else who called or wrote in for this week's episode. We certainly appreciate and enjoy all of your feedback. You can give us a call on the voice feedback line at 304-837-2278. That's open 24/7, goes straight to voicemail, so call anytime. You can also send us an email at feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com. You can type out an email or attach an audio file. And you can go to the website goldenspiralmedia.com and click on the send voicemail link that will be hugging the right-hand side of the page. and record us an audio feedback directly from your computer. Now, I will note that we did receive another feedback that came in this week that actually was submitted via the send voicemail method. We got one that we played, and we got another one that we didn't play. And the one we didn't play was not understandable. There was a lot of room echo going on, and it just was not comprehensible. So I apologize for not playing that. Encourage you to call back again. And so there's an option to listen to your feedback when you submit your feedback in that via that method. So you can listen to it and make sure you got a good recording. If not, then you can re-record it. But that's a great method for folks to use to send us in some feedback. And you can also connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/Golden Spiral Media. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at GSM Podcasts. And Twitter is the way, following us on Twitter is the way you can participate in our Revolution Twitter poll. All right. I mention every week that I need to make that music longer so I have time to pull up the poll, but do I ever do that? No. So then I start babbling and, carrying on, trying to, kill time while I pull it up. All right, this week's question, and I'm actually going to pull this up in a couple of different places because, Jeremy, we were retweeted by NBC Revolution today.
All right.
But they didn't include the hashtag to respond to, so we got some folks that responded, but not to the hashtag. But let me read these. The question this week was, what action will Jason take? Will he stay with Monroe and Tom, or will he go AWOL? So, Chiod0 says, no doubt about it, he is going to help Charlie. Test315 says, I say he goes AWOL, he has to protect Charlie. Alternicat says, not Nate, will go AWOL and attempt to rescue Charlie because he's a sucker for blondes. His mom was a blonde. Sparky in Virginia says, Jason will go where love is. Padme Skywalker 1 says, Jason's in love. Seriously, he definitely has a problem with his dad's methods. He will go AWOL and look for Charlie. Zoe Blue says, I think he'll stay as a double agent to help Charlie and the gang when they show up and help Danny. Plus, he wouldn't leave his mom. I like that. S. Langnickel says, it could be Slangnickel, but they're both capitalized. Anyway, whatever. Says he will stay silent for the moment. He still has to tell Monroe that he's seen one of the pendants. Then he will change sides. So I don't think they've seen last night's episode yet, because he has already told Monroe about that. Blank of Pie says, I can see him taking on the role of an inside man, officially part of the Monroe Republic, but helping out the resistance with info. I like that. Zort70 says, I think Jason will need to be pushed a little further before snapping completely and hurting his father or Monroe. Okay. I like that. And Zeppelin Driver says, Jason stays with Monroe, Tom, and family, but will take every opportunity in his service to save Charlie and be with her. So most people feel like he's definitely going to go AWOL, or his heart is with Charlie more so than it is with, say, his family or with the militia. Let me see if I can pull these up that came in as a result of NBC Revolution retweeting us. And thanks to NBC Revolution for doing that. I'm not sure if they listen or not, but if they are, we do appreciate that. Let's see. Pellucid. Nope. Pellucid was telling me they missed the episode here. Molly Harder says go AWOL. Julia Discusses says he lives, I think he loves Charlie, so whatever will help him save her. Zort70, I think we got that one already. E. Gately says, I believe Jason will be the rebellious teen against Daddy and join Charlie. Lady Wargo says AWOL. C.A. Uton says, if I was him, I would go AWOL. I wouldn't stick around if my dad yelled at me like that. Monkey Palm says he will stay with them and listen to their plan before going off to help Charlie and others. And I think yep, I think that's it. The rest of them are not related to the Twitter question. So yeah, so thanks to everybody who sent in. Definitely the consensus is, like I said, at least his motives and his heart are with Charlie and the gang. Okay. What do you think? You agree or disagree?
Well,
one of those that you liked better than the others?
I've agreed with pretty much most of that all night, and it kind of makes me wonder if it's a lot like that OU Notre Dame spread. We were predicted to win by 11.5, and that's obviously not the case.
Right.
So I wonder if it's a misdirection on their part. Is it something we're going to see turn out where we're all wrong? Because it's so obvious that he loves her.
Sure.
Is he actually going to not?
Well, he's been chasing her since day one.
Well.
The fun is in the pursuit, right? Yeah. I think his heart is with her. And now, whether, we have to figure out what he's going. We have to see what he's going to do. He's got some great options. I think we got several of them laid out there. But I think he knows enough now that they are sending their torturer after them. I think he's going to go AWOL now, based on that information alone, and try to head them off. Or you never know. Maybe he's got somebody he can trust within the ranks, and he'll send them out as a messenger to warn them. I kind of like that idea. And that way he could stay and kind of still have information, access to the information.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's my favorite one so far.
All right.
Of course it is. It's my own theory. But lots of good feedback, guys. Thank you for sending all that stuff in.
Yes.
All right. I gave away our contact information. Just a reminder that we do our live show every Tuesday, including this feedback podcast. We do our feedback and our episode review back-to-back the same night, Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern. Please come join us. I think you'll have a good time chatting with the other revolutionaries in the chat room. And not that Jeremy and I are, incredibly good to look at, but we're not the ugliest guys on the planet either. You can watch us do the show over at goldenspiralmedia.com/live. And you can also come to that same web address on Monday nights when Fringe is on the air, so you can, enjoy the episode with us. All right. One last reminder, if you want to vote for the podcast awards for the Fringe podcast, they start, actually by the time this comes out, they are open now. They start November 1st, and they go through November the 15th at podcastawards.com, and vote for the Fringe podcast in the best produced and in the entertainment category. We would sure appreciate that. Jeremy, anything else from you?
Nope. Let's sign off.
All right, guys. Thank you again so much for joining us for this episode. And until next time, take your protein pills and put your helmet on.
And don't forget to vote in the U.S. presidential elections on November 6th.
The Revolution Podcast and Golden Spiral Media are not associated with Bad Robot Productions, Kripke Enterprises, Warner Brothers, or NBC. Golden Spiral Media's use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided within United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. For advertising opportunities, live show, and other Golden Spiral Media podcast productions, visit goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media. We have some exciting news to share. Daryl has been selected to speak at New Media Expo, formerly Blog World, taking place in Las Vegas on January 6th through the 8th, 2013. New Media Expo is the world's largest and only industry-wide conference, trade show, and media event for bloggers, podcasters, social media networkers, online communities, internet radio and TV broadcasters, and every type of new media user and content creator. This is where independent content creators, journalists, marketers, internet entrepreneurs, and the world's largest corporations learn about the newest online communication technology, tools, and methods from innovators and industry leaders. Past events have offered more than 100 educational sessions with amazing speakers, including Guy Kawasaki, Mark Cuban, Steve Rebell, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, Chris Brogan, Paula Berg, and dozens of A-list bloggers and podcasters, award-winning journalists, Fortune 500 executives, and world-renowned online marketers. There is a wide selection of topics ranging from building an audience and community, basic and advanced blogging and podcasting, audio and video tools and techniques, web TV and internet radio broadcasting, monetizing content, social media marketing, how to effectively engage bloggers, and maximizing new media in your business marketing mix. I will be leading a session on tips for fan podcasters, joined by Lost podcasters Jay and Jack Glatfelter and Jason Kabasi from the Walking Dead cast. We will discuss how to choose the right show, how to build a community around your podcast, how to promote your podcast, how to build a relationship with a TV network, and how to properly conduct interviews. Check out all the amazing content offered at New Media Expo and book your ticket today by visiting goldenspiralmedia.com/New Media Expo. I can't wait to see you in Las Vegas, January 6th through the 8th.